The gang from A Fish Called Wanda is back.
Yeah!
In a story of crass capitalism,
You stole.
Everybody steals!
blatant commercialism,
It's not sexual.
and animal magnetism.
He likes animals.
Oh, he doesn't just like them. Could we explore that thinking a little?
John Cleese, Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Kline, Michael Palin. Fierce Creatures, rated PG-13. Starts Friday at theaters everywhere.
Welcome back to Almost Cult Classics, the podcast. My name is Joe Ramone, and I'm joined by my my co-host, Ryan Lancello.
Howdy, folks.
We got a little bit of heat from our Mel Brooks discussion.
Yeah, and I'll just say I regret nothing.
Yeah, no, I don't know why people are so... I shouldn't say people. There weren't that many. We got a couple of YouTube comments of people like, oh, you really went after Mel? We're like, not really.
I mean, I did.
Yeah, but even then, it wasn't like... You even said you respect the guy, but...
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And I think Blazing Saddles is one of the best comedies ever made.
Speaking of one of the greatest comedies ever made, that ties into this episode because you can't talk about this feature, Fierce Creatures, without talking about another movie called A Fish Called Wanda, which is considered to be one of the best comedy movies I think ever made. It's on a lot of those lists.
Gets ranked.
Yeah. But we're talking about they refer to this as not a sequel, but an equal, 1997's Fierce Creatures. The principal cast from A Fish Called Wanda returns: John Cleese, Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Kline, Michael Palin. It's directed by Robert Young and Fred Schepisi.
Sure.
And then written by John Cleese and Ian Johnstone. So I had seen this movie, I think, before A Fish Called Wanda, and I haven't seen it in years. And I remember enjoying it. And then I made the mistake of watching it right after I watched A Fish Called Wanda. And so my opinion of it is a little bit different now, but that's, we're going to get into that later. But what did you think?
Well, I think it was the same thing. I remember catching it, classic, Comedy Central. You're in between commercials. You're like, oh, what's this? And, Kevin Kline's being silly. And this zoo has posters of, Steve Martin and Bruce Springsteen and Saddam Hussein. You're like, well, this is kind of funny. And then, I didn't seen it for years. And then just like you, because I saw Fish Called Wanda, probably same thing, 15 years ago. And it was pretty good. Fish Called Wanda is a movie that's better when you're older.
I would agree with that, yeah.
I think it resonates a little more when you're... I watched it when I was 20, and I was like, yeah, it's all right. And now, I'm older, and I'm dead. You might as well just put me in the ground. I'm like, the whole Cleese character resonates a lot more. But it
just like that mild-mannered, middle-aged man, trapped in life. And,
yes, right. And he has an exit, almost.
And he plays that role very well.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
It's hilariously funny. I was actually surprised. I watched it a couple of days ago. I was fucking...
A Fish Called Wanda.
Oh, it's so good.
Okay, yeah.
And then, unfortunately, you pop on Fierce Creatures afterwards, which is, it's supposed to be an equal, not a sequel, and it's not an equal.
No. And the thing about it, too, is, we were going to discuss... A Fish Called Wanda on our Patreon show, patreon.com/almostcultclassics for $5 a month. But we really decided to go a different route. We're going to talk about some of the Python movies on that show because you can't discuss Fierce Creatures without talking about A Fish Called Wanda.
You can't. Just the fact that it's almost good that they didn't make a sequel, because if it sucked, it's it kind of ruins the characters and shit a little bit. But yeah, you have to talk about both of them, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's, there's a bit of a gap between them. A Fish Called Wanda is 88, and this is 97, so it takes, almost a decade before this materializes. And the weird thing about it is that, excluding Michael Palin, they all kind of play the similar character type, at least. Cleese is the mild-mannered buffoon that's kind of caught up in the middle. I guess you could call Jamie Lee Curtis kind of a femme fatale in both of these movies.
A little bit.
And Kevin Kline is obviously the, egotistical asshole that's there to just be kind of a dick, but funny all around.
Forgot how much I love Kevin Kline.
Yeah.
Kevin Kline's amazing.
That's talking about liking this movie as an adult. That's one thing probably as a kid I didn't really appreciate was his climax scene in Face, where he's it's great. It's just that everything he does is so exaggerated, but there's precision behind it,
and it's perfectly committed.
Yeah,
he doesn't back off at all. He goes full bore in it, and it's tremendously funny.
Yeah, I mean, Oscar winning in A Fish Called Wanda. So not only that, A Fish Called Wanda, a ton of accolades. It's not just he wins the Oscar, but there's some BAFTA awards and even Oscar nominations for screenplay and things like that. A Fish Called Wanda, also directed by the great Charles Crichton, who The Lavender Hill Mob, which is a movie we're a fan of, and a lot of those great British caper films. So he kind of retired for a long time and then came back into it with A Fish Called Wanda.
Well, you nailed it there. I think that's one thing that really gets Wanda over is that it's a heist movie. It's got the heist element. It's a crime comedy. Whereas Fierce Creatures, the crime thing is out the window, and what could have been really good, like a really like dark corporate satire, they can't. It's
almost there. I mean, there is some good.
It's not that it's not there. It's much harder to make that kind of an interesting part of your story as opposed to just, hey, we're throwing up, like I said, like Steve Martin sponsored the tortoise tank or whatever the fuck. Like it story wise, it's easier. You're around a crime. Wanda needs to get the diamonds. She's trying to find the diamonds. Here, what they're saving the zoo, and there's a corporate element, and like there's the awful zookeeper contingency. They're terrible.
Oh, like the little crowd of the supporting cast that are.
Oh, they're I couldn't tell you one of their names. I don't even know if the movie tells you their names. They're resoundingly terrible. All of them.
The only one I really recognized was Ronnie Corbett as the little guy with the glasses.
He stinks.
And I think.
Oh, look at me! I'm small and I'm making the face of the funny face.
And dude, in the UK, he was a very well known comic for that. I mean, he was just kind of a short little guy. You've never seen him in things?
Oh, I'm sure I have.
Oh, Ronnie Corbett's. I think in this movie he doesn't have much to do, so it's not really that great.
I think that's why I like Kevin Kline's Otto at Fish Called Wanda so much, because he just hates the British, and I really appreciate that. Like, it really hits a nice part inside of me. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, what is my problem with England? Like the English. And then, I did a stupid DNA test. There's a little bit in there.
Ah, there it is.
And I'm like, oh, we left. That's why I might be like have a little weird genetic thing, but just
you're
kidding.
Programmed to be.
I might be a little programmed. Now, why my family left Italy? That's a whole other story. Who knows there? But obviously, I'm being somewhat kidding to our cousins across the pond that may be listening.
Yeah, I mean, this is A Fish Called Wanda, and this are interesting because they're movies that could appeal to both UK and US audiences. There's enough there to, you have like the brash like American characters and then like the sophisticated English characters, but they're both kind of lampooning each culture, so it's a fun balance.
A Fish Called Wanda. I mean, John Cleese wrote it. It's hard on the British people.
Yeah, for sure.
Like he's like the whole thing like we're dead. Like, I mean, like she even says, like Kevin Kline's like, he's like, you're not going to sleep with him, John Cleese's character, and she's like, no, I'm not into necrophilia. It's like they all like. I don't know. I
love that too. Like his life isn't great, but it's not like inherently terrible where he like just leaves his wife and daughter at the end of the movie. Like, she's not having an affair with someone. The daughter's just kind of a bratty teenager, but it's not enough to be like, I'm never going to see you again. I'm leaving the country. Like I kind of like that cynicism of the story,
right?
And that's kind of lacking in Fierce Creatures.
A Fish Called Wanda is like you said, it's very biting and sharp, and Fierce Creatures instead is going, look how biting and sharp we are, instead of just being it.
Yeah.
And it's just toothless. There's not really much there, I don't know, satirically or what have you.
Yeah, and I think the thing about it too is, they obviously had a blast making A Fish Called Wanda, and it's really... We're joined by a fierce creature here, by the way. My dog's in the room.
Yeah.
It's really hard to recapture things like that. And this is a good example of that. Like when even I heard like the behind-the-scenes crew, a lot of the same people are involved. Like obviously you have John Cleese involved in the script, different directors, which... Did you read about the reshoots on this?
Dude, I couldn't. So for apparently they did like, a test screening, and the audience didn't like the original ending. Did you?
I couldn't find out what the original ending was.
Couldn't either, because quite frankly, parts of the ending... Like 20 minutes before Fierce Creatures is over, it almost like picks up, and you're like, "Whoa, okay, now I'm interested now." And the movie's almost over. You know what I'm talking? We'll get to that scene. It's very.
Yeah,
good,
I was almost wondering if maybe because the second director that's credited here, Fred Scapese or Scalpese, whatever his name is, he's the reshoot director. Mm-hmm. The other director was busy. Robert Young was busy. So the fact that he just comes in for a couple of reshoots and gets the second director credit, co-director credit, I think that maybe the whole plot with Kevin Kline in dual roles might have been a reshoot thing.
No.
You think so?
No. Well, because it informs the whole story.
It does, but I'm saying it might have been a different actor in the role, maybe, and then the fact. All right, I could be wrong.
Unlikely,
but because I actually like that. I like the ending when that happens. I think it's like you said. We'll get to it.
Oh yeah, it's a good ending.
Yeah, it's a movie like that's that type of like crazy madcap stuff that I love in A Fish Called Wanda. There's that scene too where they're in the hotel room that's kind of fun when they're in the closet.
It's not the worst movie.
No,
I'm not. This is not a silent movie-esque episode where I'm going to be like, John Cleese is kind of a fucking scumbag and not that talented. John Cleese is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think he misses the mark on some of the things. I feel like every 6 months he goes, "What happened to England? Where is my England?" And it's like the England you spent decades trashing.
Well, he's also been American for what? Probably decades.
Hey, I get where he's coming from, but that's a whole nother thing. But
I saw him and Eric Idle live, by the way, in Orlando in 2015. They do like a 2-man kind of show, and he was hilarious. It was just Q&A. And the Pythons and the Faulty Towers, like he's very good at lampooning certain elements of society, and I think this movie just doesn't really.
Who's it lampooning? I think that's you make your point there.
Zookeepers.
Oh, I think it was supposed to be like that corporate
it was,
thing, where it's like they should have really went for it.
Yeah, that's the stuff I like about this movie. When the zookeepers are wearing like sponsorship, outfits, and
it's funny enough.
Yeah, it's fun. Well, it's funny too in a weird sense where it's like this is what became like this isn't that satirical. Maybe in the 90s was, but
if you went to the Philly Zoo, it's probably fucking. But here's the Gorillas brought to you by Acura.
Yeah,
or
and that's
something.
what I'm wondering. Like, it might feel more satirical in the UK, but in the US, like this is how things have been done for decades.
Yeah.
Like, you have like the Penguin exhibit sponsored by Kodak. Like, you always had stuff like that. So
it is, as much as I'll shit on the UK, man, America has its own.
We're
problems.
Everywhere is a billboard. But yeah, so I mean. Not comparing it to A Fish Called Wanda, which is really hard to do if you've seen both. Like you said, it's still an okay comedy.
It's all right.
Yeah, it's got its moments. I don't think it's visually as interesting. And for me, I have here the Fierce Creatures DVD. I couldn't find a Blu-ray. I'm sure there's one out there, but once again, it's that 4:3 aspect ratio that no one's bothered to restore since, it's VHS transfer. And, Arrow Blu-ray put out a great Fish Called Wanda. So I watched that, and it was great. It was crisp. When I watched this, and it's got that thing I hate that we talk about where the opening sequence is in widescreen. So on my, flat screen TV, it's like a third of the picture.
Right.
And then I'm like, could it be? So I have, custom zoom I do. So I did that, stretched it out, and then all of a sudden it jumps to, I'm like... Oh no! I got to go back. So very, just that automatically going into it didn't help, and everything else. I don't know. It's just not. A Fish Called Wanda is so quick, and everything flows really well.
It's one thing I'm actually going to get into. Especially British crime cinema. There's a lot I missed. I remember from our first episode, someone gave me shit because I was talking about Bob Hoskins. And I was talking about Mona Lisa's Smile, and I can't believe it. It's like a classic British crime film. He's in it.
The Long Good Friday?
I think that's what it is. And they were like, how do you not bring that up?
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, how did I not bring that up? So I want to get into that.
I just watched that recently, too, so I can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. There is a style they had, post-war up until about, who knows when, we'll call it the Hollywood style, just dominates everything.
I think Get Carter fits into that. There's certain
that. But the directing in Fish Called Wanda is great. That heist scene was awesome. It's kinetic. And
it's that type of. It's played like you would see in serious, almost like neo-noir type films. It's very even the logistics of it. Everything is played straight, and then it's just everything else around them is crazy.
Right, and I think that's where you lose. Fierce Creatures, it almost is a lot of the directing's flat. When it's not basic setups, it's kind of cartoony and it doesn't.
Yeah, it's not very inventive, but it's visual.
And Fish Called Wanda kept me interested in how it was being visually shown to me. I really enjoyed that. I mean, how should we go through this? Because there's parts, man, just simple shit like Kevin Kline driving the giant town car on little English roads.
Yeah.
Speeding, I'm watching. I'm like, that's how I drive.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know this about this movie until after we decided to do it. But it does meet the mold of a lot of the movies we've talked about. Pretty big flop. But
who talks about this anymore?
No one talks about it. And that's the weird thing too. A Fish Called Wanda, $7 million budget. This was $25 million budget. So
Where did that money go?
the zoo animals and that animatronic panda, and I assume those gorillas were animatronic because
Yeah.
There's a couple gorillas that could have been real, but they've got animals and lemurs and all that shit. That's a lot of money.
I suppose, yeah.
They had to build the zoo. They couldn't film in an actual zoo, so that's a big issue with it. And it doesn't get shit canned in reviews. I pulled the New York Times review, which was by Janet Maslin.
She's still going.
Is she really? I'll read you a quick snippet of this. Fierce Creatures has all the makings of giddy, enjoyable, silly farce. It never reaches the comic pitch of A Fish Called Wanda, and it indulges in the occasional dopey gag. And despite much-noted troubles that called for rewrites in the literally funny script, the film's loose plotting isn't much of a problem. The story is inconsequential. And it's like that. Is she praising the movie for not having a good story?
I don't know, but the story's inconsequential, then the movie's a little inconsequential.
Yeah, she's essentially saying, here's another. The real fun here comes from watching Mr. Kline bounding through two arcly good performances. Mr. Cleese coming hilariously unstrung in the presence of Miss Curtis and all those adorable animals.
Dude, honestly, she nailed it on that last part. I was watching this movie, and I think it's when the zookeepers first show up, and they're like, oh, a zoo, oh no, oh, bloody hell. And they're all holding a cute animal. I'm like, oh, fuck. I'm going to be watching 90 minutes of, cute animal reaction shots. Uh-oh, did someone fart? Oh, the lemur's making a face, which makes my fucking skin crawl, man. I hate that shit. And to be fair, there wasn't a ton of that.
Yeah.
But it was there.
It's there. And the thing about it is, apparently that was the zoo element was the final motivator for John Cleese to arrive at this movie. He wanted to reunite with the cast, couldn't figure out a story, and then he visited a zoo or an animal sanctuary in... It's always funny to me that there's a Jersey, England.
It throws me off every time.
He visits it there and starts to get ideas. He apparently grew up obsessed with lemurs, going to the zoo and seeing lemurs. So, yeah, like you said, it's not overpowering. There's that whole subplot where he has the animals in his apartment, which leads to some,
kind of funny, a kind of running gag that keeps going.
There is a lot of, I was surprised how many, of those movie cliches we talk about are in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
One I hate, which is the whole, I am talking and someone's behind me and I'm going to keep talking I don't know they're behind me, and, everyone's, looking away. It's just, this has been done so many times.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things like that, but...
By the way, you just brought up a critic. Let me just, real quick, there's a blurb on the back of this DVD. Even funnier and fiercer than the original, which I assume he's referring to A Fish Called Wanda.
Yeah.
That's Michael Medved, grade A dickhead, shitty critic who's been around forever, just the dumbest takes on film.
Isn't that funny, though, too? I mean, because they have very similar marketing, very similar posters.
Oh, it was intentional.
Yeah, and different studios. I think Fish Called Wanda is MGM, this is Universal, so, really they tried to make this into every, way. It's like even the critics saying the original. Well, again, it's not really a sequel.
No, it's not even remotely.
Yeah.
It's got the same cast, and they kind of play characters semi-similar. That's it.
Yeah.
That is it.
Yeah. But I kind of respect this movie for that, because we talk about this a lot with movies that I've talked about it with the Three Stooges shorts and things like that, where, similar characters and different stories. So
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I like that.
And they're a great foursome. Michael Palin, John Cleese, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Kevin Kline. It's an excellent foursome.
It's just so disappointing that, I guess, for this movie, because their first movie is so good that you can't, no matter what they made, I think, nothing would have come. And I think that being said, Fierce Creatures, like you said, it's not bad. It's not A Fish Called Wanda, but it has some fun moments. You said, the plot's a little muddled, which we can kind of get through.
I guess real quick, we should do a quick rundown of the plot. Since Wanda came first, 1988, it's pretty simple. Jamie Lee Curtis is part of a kind of, gang of criminals. They're going to knock off a diamond store. It's her. Michael Palin is Ken Pyle, who's got the stammer. She brings in Otto, who's the Kevin Kline character, ex-CIA. He's going to be the weapons guy. Then there's George, who's kind of like the leader. It's played by Tom Georgeson, apparently, who's great. He's got that dumb, flat, all right, who is this then?
He looks like that typical, he'd be leading the gang of thieves in this. Yeah,
he's good. He's very good. And they're going to knock off the diamonds. And they do. And then, there's the classic, something gets a little fucked up. Otto rats out George so they can, get him out of the way.
They think that Otto is her brother, and they're really lovers. Like she's the real like femme fatale in this movie.
And I have to say, Jamie Lee Curtis, not my cup of tea personally, but what presence in this film.
Yeah.
Like she is really like
she's in True
Lies.
True Lies, right? Yeah. I mean, there's like certain elements where she can play up that I'm a sexy, beautiful woman vibe.
Hey,
like
I'm not saying she's not.
Yeah. I agree though. She's look,
It's that thing with actors, man. Some have it and some don't. It's a presence thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's a good actress too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
She's very good, but the camera, like it almost like the camera's running better when she's on it. She's very good in this film. You can see how
because her character's playing everyone. Yeah,
and you can see how they'd all be a little obsessed with her. And she's
sure.
got her normal hair in this, and she's wearing a wig in Fierce Creatures. I think that threw me off a little too.
You're saying you like her without the wig?
It's not that I like her. It's just it seemed, what's the word? Not more natural. It seemed more believable. Like she was.
Well, speaking of wigs and Fierce Creatures, Cleese has one on his head in Fierce Creatures, man. Did you not pick up on that?
Is it?
It has to be, because in A Fish Called Wanda, we talk about this like where
he is like bald.
It's like you're kind of bald. Like it's that you're kind of bald, but you've grown your hair long.
The
Frasier
cut.
Yeah, the Frasier thing. And then in this, it's like they make like a certain hairpiece that you like comb into your hair. It's not like quite a wig, but there's definitely some.
I can see that because he looks younger in this,
and it's like a fucking brown dyed wig he's wearing.
He almost looks pretty old in Fish Called Wanda, but he's supposed to.
Yeah, he's but again, I think that's how he's playing it up. He doesn't have the mustache. He's just and it's great, like you said, he's great performance. But go on, continue.
To jump back, so Otto gets you don't even frame him. He just calls in a tip, and they arrest George. And the Cleese character, Archie Leach, is his barrister.
By the way, Cary Grant's real name.
Which is, Archie Leach is a pretty good name.
Archie Leach.
Archie Leach.
Yeah.
Yes, ladies.
I remember back in one of our first episodes in your greeting, you did Judy, Judy, Judy.
Yeah.
And I was like, what was that? I had no idea. And like, I've become more of a cinephile since those days, so I get it now.
There you go.
Yeah, good old Archie Leach.
But so I'm not quite sure how the fucking British legal system works. Because they're like, well, that's George's lawyer, and he's talking to George's barrister. I guess maybe you get a lawyer and then like an official.
They also call meetings surgery, like political meetings surgery, because there was like someone died in surgery, and like all of the American, I forget who it was. It was some British politician or lawyer or something, and it was just like the way, reading through comments on news sites, like, wait, he died. Like, what is? Yeah, so
I forget exactly. You ever see the John Adams series on HBO?
It's been a while, but yeah,
it was pretty good. It's okay. It's directed a little odd, but what is his name? Steven something. He's really good.
Hi, I am John Adams, and that's what I do.
The guy playing Jefferson, though, and at one point he's got a great line. He's just like, "I'd give everything I could if I could sink the British Isle into the ocean," and I think about that a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of great accent work with these characters, I think, and that plays a part in both movies. There's obviously, again, Kevin Kline, we're going to get to it, but he's got just the way he enunciates and speaks, and it's so fun.
But so anyway, he's going to be George's barrister, and the Jamie Lee Curtis character, Wanda, goes, I'm going to get him to find out where the diamonds are and then just take them. She has the key to whatever safe deposit box is in. She stole that from the fish tank. Michael Palin's character.
Yeah, she's going to betray Otto. She's betraying George. She's going to betray Ken, presumably. So she's really out for herself. But yeah, she gets George was smart enough to call their bluff. So it's all moving pieces at this point, and the movie kind of is about them all, trying to con one another into giving over the right pieces that they need to secure the diamonds.
And that propels the story. Whereas in Fierce Creatures, it's basically like, oh God, I hope they don't shut down the zoo. That's kind of it.
Yeah.
There's not the moving parts that you have in Wanda that are really, it's that cause and effect thing. It's like, well, this character did that. Now this is happening. And it's umbrella out.
Well, even that, like, in A Fish Called Wanda, Michael Palin's character has that great subplot where he's trying to kill the old lady. And it's like he has something to do, and it's funny. And it's in this, it's just like he's just there.
Not only that, I love this too. I love this little story. Who knows how much this shit's real that you read. This I know is true. Michael Palin, his father had a stammer or a stutter from whatever side of the ocean you're on. I don't know. We don't call it stammer over here, do we?
Stutter.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. stutter.
Stutter.
Anyway.
That's a real Philly
Yeah.
stutter ice.
Very good.
There it is.
Not bad. But anyway, so I guess after the fact, some dumb stammerers had a problem with his performance, which I found not offensive whatsoever.
No.
It's a guy with a stutter. What's the big deal? Anywho, he founds the London Center for Stammering Children. I'm stammering saying it.
I'm not even going to attempt that one.
But it's like, dude, all you did was have a character with a stutter. Kevin Kline was shitting on people with a stutter the whole movie.
Yeah.
What did he do? He won an Oscar and got to be married to Phoebe Cates. He didn't. He's the one that should have.
Asshole.
So funny.
Yeah, he
Oh, I'm sorry, not to cut you
Yeah,
off.
go ahead.
But yeah, so to I don't know, penance for the stammering character in Fierce Creatures, the Michael Palin character Bugsy never shuts up. It's never funny.
Yeah.
And not only that, it has one funny thing, is that every other character in the movie is like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, well, I think that was their I'm going to use quotes, clever way to differentiate characters. And I give him credit because he's really the only one that goes for it in terms of I'm going to be a different character completely.
He's good. I mean,
Yeah.
Michael Palin's great.
There's a movie with him in it, and it's been suggested to us, and I'm definitely going to say we're going to come back to it. But I think it's called, I don't want to say The Missionary, but it's something like about a priest who gets sent to a brothel to like oversee them, and the poster's him as a priest like looking up real reverently surrounded by prostitutes. It looks really funny. So
Check it out.
He's
I've always liked him. a lot.
he's the one that's like, he got into doing those travel programs and stuff like that.
Which were good.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been that. We'll talk about the Python movies on our separate show, but I love Meaning of Life. He has so many great. And Terry Jones is great. They're all like, they all bring their own things to the table.
I was surprised. I thought Palin was my favorite. And I like him still. I don't have a favorite anymore, I realize, because I did the same thing. I watched all their movies. They all bring something, man, and they're all like really fucking funny.
Yeah. There's a real quick too. It's because we'll talk about it a little bit on Patreon. There's I always call it the Monty Python Kids movie. It's called A Wind in the Willows. It's an adaptation of that movie, but it's got most of them in it.
Terry Jones directed.
Yeah, it's really, really silly, really ridiculous movie. Yeah, we can talk a little bit about that later. That movie with Michael Palin, by the way, is called The Missionary. So maybe we'll check that out at a later date. But yeah,
Like the position. I get it.
yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, see, those British, they're clever with their everything.
I thought I hated Eric Idle too, and I don't. I thought I did. You know what it was? When I was growing up, I feel like he was the most visible. And he gets a little high. That's his thing. But he always really had bad haircuts, and it turned me off.
I'm trying to think yeah, you're right. He was more. There used to be it used to be at Busch Gardens. I'm sure it was at other theme parks around the world, but it was a 3D pirate show with him and Leslie Nielsen as pirates. You could probably find it on YouTube. It was ridiculous.
Probably can.
Yeah.
But he's a bit of a whore. He'll kind of put his name on anything. Right?
He's even in. I talked about it in one of my Hats Off videos. He's in Christmas Vacation too. They bring back Eric Idle as
oof.
Yeah, he is a whore for
That's
money.
okay. Whatever.
It's fine. But John Cleese has always been yes, well, I've had divorces. He's very. I think he has done something called the Alimony Tour. He's very open about I'm doing this for the money.
Sure.
Because he always voices monkeys in the George of the Jungle movies. He's done a couple of that. But he's just got that voice.
None of them are pure.
No, maybe Gilliam.
I feel like he did. I don't know. Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have to revisit him.
Oh, we are
in
for
toto.
Sure. For sure. We've talked about maybe doing the Brothers Grimm because that's kind of. But that might be worth.
You ever heard Tideland?
Mm-hmm.
When that came out, that movie was people were fucking pissed about that movie.
Really?
Do you know why?
Oh.
It opens with I think it's Jennifer Tilly and Jeff Bridges are this. They're musicians.
Okay.
They're junkies, and the whole movie is basically this. It's the little girl. She kind of is the whole movie.
Okay.
And the movie starts with her shooting up Jeff Bridges because he's like, "Hey, tie me off," and she's the daughter, and then he dies, and she's abandoned.
Okay.
And then the movie.
So the movie gets controversial because of that theme.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, she was kind of shooting up. They had a kid shooting up. It's amazing that shit's forgotten, dude. It was a big controversy.
I recently watched. Speaking of British films, one of your favorites, Sid and Nancy, for the first time.
I love that movie.
Yeah. Is that accurate? That movie?
In what sense?
I mean, is that what really happened in how their demise?
Yeah, I'm nodding. Yeah.
It's rough. It's a grungy, depressing movie.
I just bought all of Alexis Cox's Criterion movies. And I think it was you. You were like, "Do you even have a Blu-ray player?" I was like, "Shit, I don't even have one." They're just sitting. I didn't even unwrap them. They're just sitting there.
The Blu-rays are like $30 now. So hey, if you want to contribute to the Almost Cult Classics Blu-ray fund. By the way, we're doing a special promotion for our sponsorship, which is us. We have T-shirts available now. We're doing a special promo code Wanda, and you're going to get 10% off your order. So go to our website, almostcultclassics.com. I have a store link there, and you can use that promo code to get 10% off a T-shirt order. So we would love you to order that so Ryan can get his Blu-ray player to watch the Alex Cox movies.
Hey, why the hell not?
Yeah. So do you want to get into the plot of this one now, Fierce Creatures?
Sure.
Now that we've given a rundown of A Fish Called Wanda. So like we were saying, it's the four of them are playing essentially the same characters, excluding Michael Palin, and Kevin Kline is in dual roles as Rod and Vince, a father and son team. Rod is the father, who's really heavy New Zealand accent.
Very
and Vince
heavily,
is the son.
I'd say, based on like a Rupert Murdoch-esque.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that. Yeah, probably. And you know what the weird thing, too? I was thinking about this. It's Dave, this, and Wild Wild West. Kevin Kline plays dual roles. And not only that, at one point in all of these movies, his character that looks like one of the other characters has to pretend to be that character.
He's got range.
He does, but I'm saying, do you think that's like a Kevin Kline thing? He's like, I'll do it, but I want to play multiple characters.
It might be. I'll tell you what, if anyone ever gave me the chance to be an actor, I'd love to play multiple roles.
Because I was thinking about it in Wild Wild West, which we're going to get to.
Who does he play?
He plays President Grant, but then he also plays Artemis Gordon pretending to be President Grant, and then Artemis Gordon plays like a prostitute type woman, like he's got the long wig on and the fake tits, and that's when he's like, "Feel me up, feel my breasts," and Emmett Walsh is the conductor, who's like, and then he plays like a pioneer man he disguises himself as. All this crazy shit in that movie.
Dude, Kevin Kline is fucking... Is he underrated?
Well, I think, too, he doesn't do much. They always say, like, he's notorious for declining film parts. So I guess he's pretty particular about it.
This podcast is a Kevin Kline respecting podcast.
Dude, I wanted to tell you, because we were talking about what we can watch in prep for this movie. I watched The January Man, because I was like, let me watch Kevin Kline. Have you seen or heard of it? It's mystery film about him trying to track down a serial killer, but he's like an eccentric detective who works in funny ways, and Alan Rickman plays his artist roommate who becomes his partner.
Yes, Kevin, it is me, Alan Rickman. I'm here to star in a film with you.
Pretty good.
That's not bad.
You're getting good.
Thank you.
I'm trying to think if I watched any other... Oh, you know what else I watched? I'll talk about this on Sidetracks. One of the directors of Fierce Creatures, Robert Young, also directed a movie called Splitting Heirs.
And Eric Idle, if you look at the poster, he's got a terrible haircut.
It's a wig, that's why.
Oh, whatever.
But it's written by Eric Idle, and John Cleese is also in that.
Is that any good?
No.
Then we're
But
not, I'll let you have fun with that.
You can tell, though, it's like Eric Idle's attempt to do something like A Fish Called Wanda, and it doesn't quite... It's got my boy Rick Moranis in it.
Hey, I'll say one thing for Eric Idle. He wrote some good songs.
That's true. I mean, he's probably banking on that alone, like those replays on...
Oh, yeah. I
wonder if he has to get paid when people die and they want that played at their funeral. Does he get the money? So yeah, do you understand the opening of this movie, though? It's like Willow arrives in Atlanta where this octopus, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Organization is. It's just like a conglomerate run by Rod McCain, who buys up a bunch of different acquisitions and just uses them purely for profit. And she has a job offered with them, but then it's not anymore. She doesn't have it anymore.
Yeah, I can explain. I mean, it's not really much to explain. I do have to say this, quick aside. They show the picture of Rod McCain, the older Kevin Kline character.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, because I hadn't seen this in forever.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, man. I'm like, they're just going to do a picture of him. And then he shows up and he's a character of the whole movie. Kevin Kline almost saves this movie single-handedly. That Rod McCain character is fantastic, dude. Really fucking funny. No, she was hired to work on, let's say, Company X. And they sold Company X. So now she has nothing to work on.
Right.
That was it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then she decides that they've recently acquired this Marwood Zoo, which they've sent John Cleese's character, Rallo, to run and operate. Is that the gist, right?
Yeah.
And she sees it as a golden opportunity to... I couldn't really understand her, goals and motivations.
I think she just thought it was a good business opportunity.
Okay.
And
then
it was a little
at the same
unclear.
time, his son Vince, also played by Kevin Kline, he's like has some issues with the company in the past with forging signatures and stealing from them. So his father, in a way, is sending him as punishment or to get away from him or keep an eye on him. Again, a little unclear, but he's enamored with Jamie Lee Curtis's character, Willa, so he goes with her to the zoo. And at the same time as John Cleese's character has taken over this zoo, this is where we get into that fierce creatures thing. His business proposition at the hands of Rod is that they increase their revenue by 20%, and to do that, they're going to eliminate any creature that's not considered like ferocious or fierce. And I think this is like where you're saying, like, I wish the zookeepers had a little bit more to do, because then they all try to convince him that, no, these lemurs are really fierce. This anteater is fierce. There's some funny scenes there, right?
It's the joke is almost immediately done. It's like, okay, yeah, they're not fierce. We get it. One funny thing is the Rod McCain character. It's real quick. I think a lot of I almost missed it, but it's like, so who do we have running this zoo? He's like, we got this guy Rollo. He's a Chinaman. He was with the Hong Kong police. And at the end of the movie, he's like, who are you? He doesn't realize Rollo
that's
is.
kind of funny. I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah. It's lightning quick, but and then I really hated the zookeepers, man. I fucking hated them.
Well, there's that again. They all tell him that they can't get rid of the animals, and that the only way to, do away with the non-ferocious animals is to kill them, because they can't sell them. No other zoo wants them.
So they leave him in his office.
Yeah, they're essentially trying to call his bluff, but he fake calls their bluff by pretending to shoot them. But he's at his heart a good man, and he ends up stashing them all at his apartment. And there's like. Is there like an ostrich and a lemur, and there's 5 of them, and they all have like female names. So when Vince and Willa show up in town, he's on the phone, he's talking to them like, Susie, get out of there, don't be biting me.
Don't touch that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put you on hold just for one moment, okay? Thank you.
Another filthy habit he picked up in the Far East.
Now you just go over there. Right? Stay. Don't just stop it. I've got to talk to those marketing moonies. Now just go over there and play with each other, right? Go on. He's got 2 girls. Go away, Susie. Susie, what are you going down there for?
And
well,
so
he also thinks it's on hold. He doesn't realize the line is live.
There's a running gag where like he keeps being put in situations where it looks like he's this Casanova, and it's not the case. It's just the funny stuff.
The gag works. It really works in the hotel room. Later on in the film.
Yeah, well, that's what, because we're going to talk about Fawlty Towers a bit later, but that, when I think of that sitcom, I think of that type of madcap, quick-paced, mix-up type scenarios that ran really quick, they're funny, they're tight.
I think they're all, it's a lot of times it's a sex farce.
Yeah.
But I think they call them sometimes bedroom comedies or hotel comedies.
Yeah,
because
that's the rotating doors in and out. No, I like that stuff.
I love it.
And that's a really funny scene in this. And there's also, here's another trope I dislike. When the character is boldly confident into thinking that everything around him is fake, and then he happens to question the one person that isn't fake. In this instance, they're all pretending to get injured. All the zookeepers are pretending to get injured by animals to make the...
This went on so long.
Yeah, it did. And in reality, there's a zoo guest who actually fell and hurt her leg.
You're not fooling anyone, so just get up. What is going on? Don't you understand? This is artificial blood. The whole thing's a charade. She's not hurt.
She is hurt.
No. Look, she's just one of the keeper's wives.
She's my wife.
Look, taste the blood.
She's my wife.
Taste the blood.
She's my wife.
She's your wife?
So, of course, Rollo comes running up and is like, no, it's not real. And he starts, licking her leg and tasting her blood. And I don't like shit like that. I think that absurd, not the absurdity, it's not funny. It's the whole gag of, I know this is fake, and I'm going to do something really outlandish to prove it. It's like that scene in Tropic Thunder when Steve Coogan's character blows up and Ben Stiller's licking his decapitated head. It's we've seen it before. I just don't,
I'm with you. It's diminishing returns.
But there's a really funny line there where his character's name is Rollo Lee, and someone's like, Rollo Lee? More like Christopher Lee. Oh, that was kind of funny because he's licking the bloody leg.
It was all right. Plus, it was really staged poorly, that whole thing. Because, all those zookeepers are getting hurt, and then all of a sudden you see this woman in the background, kind of fall over and, fall down the stairs, and you're like...
Oh, was that even in the shot? I didn't even notice that.
Exactly, yeah. And it's staged very... You're like, what is that?
Right.
And now all of a sudden you're thinking, What was that?
Yeah. Plus, I'm watching it in 4:3 aspect ratio. It might have been cut off.
It's very possible.
Did you watch it in widescreen?
No, I stupidly rented it on Amazon.
Was it in?
That was fine. I don't know.
Okay.
I saw everything. So
the side nude angles that I missed out on.
Right.
Yeah. So that's when Vince and Willows show up in the zoo, and again, this might be because I'm a cynical American. I thought that was actually a really inspired idea to have celebrity endorsed or sponsored zoo animals. Like, there has to be somewhere in the country that's doing that now.
Oh, I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
don't know, it's a big country, my friend.
there's a lot of zoos.
A lot of zoos.
But do you think, like, I think that's legitimately, like, not a, like, even, again, to this, like, cynical sense of, like, we're not even contacting the celebrities. Like, we're just saying this is Bruce Springsteen's turtle. But I think there'd be an angle in, like, celebrities sponsoring zoo animals that need care. Like, I don't know.
I'm blankly looking at him right now. I'm not with you. I'm an anti-consumerist, so I don't like any of that shit. I can find the humor in it for the film.
Yeah, I mean, that might be it. There's a lot of, like, the only thing I like about those awful, particularly that first Jurassic World movie, is that they lean into, here's what Jurassic Park would look like if it was sponsored by groups, and there's a Margaritaville in the park, like shit like that.
It's interesting.
That's how it would be if it existed.
You're taking it to those, the most logical extreme, I guess you can call it. But
yeah.
The movie does it half-heartedly.
Yeah, that's true. And they don't really give us enough of those scenes, and it's just kind of like, here's some new costumes, here's some banners.
Fish Called Wanda is so tight. Mm-hmm. Editing, writing, directing.
Yeah.
It almost seems like everything from the page made it onto the screen. I doubt it did, but in this, you're like, what? How many pages got cut here?
Yeah.
It's just not. It's clunky. It's not streamlined or anything.
Yeah. So Vince at that point, makes all these changes. There's like big sponsorship banners, Guinness and Panasonic, and all the zookeepers have to start wearing these brightly cartoonish and like your typical like Australian like with that hat with like they're just covered in sponsorships. It kind of reminded me of, which I actually think that Amazon show The Boys is doing really well right now. But do you remember Mystery Men?
Sure.
Which is one we get requested. But Greg Kinnear's character, I forget his name. He's like the superhero, but he has like all sponsorship patches on him.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
He did.
Again,
that was a good flick.
The 90s, we were kind of clever with our, satire in a certain way.
Well, it existed.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Satire's gone now. I don't know what. I keep hearing The Boys is satirical. I watched the first season. I'm like,
it's some of it's like a little too on the nose. Like now it's starting to get into like MAGA territory, and like it's a little. I wish they didn't go that route with it, but
I heard they're kind of having a bit of a. This happens every time. You make a character like a piece of shit, and like a monster. And everyone loves him.
Yeah.
This has happened countless.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially in the performance is great. Like, you're going to have people love that character.
He's the only reason I kind of want to watch the show. I'm like, that Homelander character's fucking awesome.
Oh, yeah. And he's terrific as an actor.
He's great. But it's that smile.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. But, like, otherwise, I'm like, I'm tired of, we make fun of all sides. I'm like, no, you don't. I'm like, I just don't care. It's toothless, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
We can get it. That's like...
It's a whole nother...
we could get into, like, when we start to get into Python on our Patreon episode, just like with South Park and stuff, and how Python... we'll get into it on Patreon. Oh, that's a tease.
So other changes that Vince starts to make to the park is...
the Vince character I'm cutting... This is my...
Ryan just shoved his hand on my face. Yeah.
I didn't love the Vince character. He's not fully formed.
Oh, no. And
you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. You're like, other than like there's subtle hints of the fact that he's a schemer and has stolen from his father before, you really don't like Otto is so fleshed out in the sense that, he just he's jealous of Wanda. He wants the money. Like, there's really no other, it's just very fleshed out.
And don't call him stupid. Here it's like, he's kind of like the son, what's the angle in terms of like not having... He was an absent father, Rod. So he has a lot of regret about his childhood, and he's bitter about it. It's just like... But it's just that when you're first introduced to him, he almost comes across as like the layabout son who doesn't really give a shit about the company and just wants to bang Jamie Lee Curtis. And then like that's what he's doing for the first third of the movie. And then all of a sudden he's like... We're going to do this, and I'm into the marketing. And I'm like, oh, you care all of a sudden?
Well, it turns out
like, why aren't you just trying to get laid?
He is skimming money from this whole marketing thing. I don't know how, but at the end of the movie, he's attempting to make off with the money he stole from this whole sponsorship ploy he was doing. Because I guess, like, they weren't really sponsorship. They weren't sponsored by these celebrities. Like there's because they have that whole thing. Oh, Bruce Springsteen's agent just called. Like he didn't approve this. Like, by the way, the only 3 I noticed were Bruce Springsteen, Steve Martin, and Saddam Hussein.
That's it. That's all I saw.
Yeah,
which is funny enough.
It's a weird grouping of people, but
it is. It's funny to think like it's once again like Kevin Kline, huge star. Steve Martin was a huge star. Like he was a big deal. Where you'd like those 3. Think about that.
Yeah.
Springsteen, Saddam, and Steve Martin.
In 1997?
Big deal.
Yeah.
Whatever how you feel about Steve Martin, I like him, I guess, but he's certainly not like a huge star anymore.
Yeah.
Whatever. You watched that stupid show with him, didn't you?
Yeah, I have my
it?
problems with that. It's like it's kind of like a murder mystery in an apartment building, and they're true crime obsessed fans, and they start their own podcast, try to solve a mystery. It's fun.
Okay.
It's not what I wish they were. I wish they would be doing more like that wacky like SCTV or like Dead Man Don't Wear Plaid. I wish they were doing more crazy type comedy still, but yeah, I'm just glad that they're around and they're doing shit still.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so he's making all these changes, and like you said, we're not really sure how he's skimming money, but he's taking money from these sponsorship deals that they've been having, and I like that he does at one point make there's our fierce creature. Stop crying. I like that he puts the middle management office in the lion cage. That's kind of funny.
That was funny. But that's the other thing that's weird about this character. He's really on Rollo's case because he thinks he's like this sex fiend. Why do you are one? What do you care?
Well, I think he feels threatened by
is that what it was?
Willows. She's starting to get it again. Same thing in both movies. Like Jamie Lee Curtis's characters develop a sort of weird attraction to John Cleese's characters. It's not really founded. It's just like she's
the Archie character's pretty.
Again, everything that this movie tries to do, A Fish Called Wanda does better. She starts off trying to dupe him, but in the end, falls for him. Here, it's more like she thinks he's like this player that's like having all these crazy sex experiences. So it's a different type of enamoration. Yeah. But I still like that angle. It's funny.
It was.
And again, but same dynamic. Then Kevin Kline's character is jealous of that and tries to thwart it. And his thing is just making him look as silly and buffoon as possible, including he even has a Panasonic like label down his back on his suit, and one of them is putting him in the lion cage, his middle management office now. So
funny gag. Yeah, so I mean, it does work, and it keeps playing into the story as we go on about him in these little what's the best way to put it, escapades that aren't really happening.
Yeah, he's like romantic type of situations he gets like, because one is the zookeepers find out that he didn't kill those 5 animals, so the 2 zookeepers they're kissing him all over his cheeks, and it's every time this happens, Vince and Willow walk into it. Similar situation happens when Rod's coming to visit, and
why?
I don't know. I guess to monitor his purchase.
I don't remember either. Cannot be overstated how funny Kevin Kline is that Rod McCain, though.
Yeah, that New Zealand. He's thick, bushy mustache, and he like contorts his face in a way where like he looks like an old man. Mm-hmm. He looks like he actually had some years.
He does something brilliant later, Kevin Kline. We'll get to it towards the end of the film. With that character, I was really surprised at.
What's the deal with? Do you think this is one thing about the character that didn't work for me? Is the farting?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you this: why do they always use a sound effect that sounds like it's not there? It always sounds like
because it's like recorded somewhere else and just
You can't make it sound like it happened in the room.
I don't know how they record fake fart sounds. It might be like.
No, I don't think they're recording them. I know that's in some studio somewhere, but why can't they ever incorporate these things into so it sounds natural? It always
sounds like it's in a trash can or something. It's like
it sounds like it's playing like a recording. But
also it doesn't ever sound like a real fart. It's like is that something that they like? Maybe the test screenings they're like, we need to add some farts in here because they're not addressed.
Perhaps
none of the characters say, "Oh, P farted again." It's just they're like he leaves the screen as he walks off. There's a fart.
He usually burps and farts.
But again, it's not like acknowledged or it's very weird.
Yeah, it's not very good.
So there's he's coming to visit, and to find out his intentions for the zoo, Michael Palin's character Bugsy decides that he's going to bug him and Rollo are going to bug the hotel room where they're meeting at to find out what their intentions are for the zoo.
As good as this sequence is, it's
a dumb setup.
It's so dumb.
Yeah, because their immediate response so what happens is, obviously, mayhem ensues, and as they're setting up this recording device, they get trapped in the room, so they have to hide in the closet.
Hold on. They were recording him to find out his intentions with the zoo.
Mm-hmm.
The guy's either makes money or he's closing it down. There's nothing to learn here, really.
Well, again, much like when we covered Problem Child, this is another character that wants to sell it to the Japs. He wants to sell it. He says it, yeah.
Line exactly.
Yeah.
Build a golf course.
Yeah. He wants them to build a golf course where the zoo is. So that's his intention. And then Vince is going to ask him for a raise at the same time. So they're going to get all this exposition done. But yeah, they get trapped in this hotel room. So it's one of the female zookeepers.
That's the other thing I really had a problem with too.
What?
The little blonde zookeeper. They're all like, she's holding the sheep.
Yeah, why is the sheep there?
Why is the sheep there? For the joke
For the
later,
joke at the end, yeah.
Which is a funny joke.
She just carries the sheep around.
It annoyed me so much.
You see where it's going.
Dude, I'm an animal lover. Big time. Like, really big time. I cannot stand animal people. Like, when they're... I hate them.
As I was just holding my dog as we were recording this.
It's fine. But, I mean, it's like... You're not like, ooh, does Poopsie want to comment on the... Like,
I agree.
It's sickening.
I think animal love is in the personality.
It's but, like, the fact that I'm going to bring the sheep everywhere, it's like all the characters had that.
Well, because they were like, we can't just have this person standing around. Each zookeeper has to have a fun trait. One of them has to carry a sheep around. One of them's a little short guy. Like, because they're so devoid of any fun characteristics that they're like, let's just make all this shit up.
God, it sucked. They just stink.
Yeah. So there's another a busty brunette zookeeper. Rollo and Bugsy end up in the closet hiding in the hotel room. And again, stupid character trait. Bugsy carries a tarantula around with him and it escapes his pocket. And Rollo and this other zookeeper's first reaction to that is, let's strip our clothes off.
Right.
Because it could be honest somehow.
Yeah.
And obviously you see where this is going. Willow arrives, and after they think she left her room, Cleese and this woman come out of the closet, and it's like, oh, now he's involved with two zookeepers and a sheep, and she finds that appealing. So
I'll tell you what, it almost works. Because it does build to a funny gag. Like, she looks in the room.
It's so funny. It's the way Cleese sells it.
She sees the sheep, and then she looks to her left and sees the two zookeepers in their skivvies.
Well, it's not only that. It's when, she doesn't leave the room. She just had shut the door, so they think she left. So he comes walking out of the closet with his pants down and sits down, lets out a sigh, like, never again am I going to get involved in this situation. I'm getting too old for this, that type of thing. So it's very funny. Cleese is very good, like I said, at writing those type of scenarios that are... near misses and misunderstandings. It's really what I think Fawlty Towers is so good at. And what happens in that scene in A Fish Called Wanda when he's taking his clothes off and the family walks
Russian.
in. And that's
so good.
Yeah. I love how Kevin Kline's Italian is just saying Italian words.
Parmigiana, Milanese, Capriccio.
Yeah, and
Cleese was reciting a Russian poem, I'm pretty sure.
And that's like, again, talk about things that as a kid not getting with that movie, where like Jamie Lee Curtis is on the ground, like writhing around, like grinding the floor.
Drooling.
Yeah, it's like
excellent.
Like you said, not some things you would, even that when like Kevin Kline inhales her boot.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, dude. And he keeps doing it.
He's blowing it up and sucking in there.
He's blowing up a boot.
Yeah.
Who would have thought of that? It's such a good performance, man.
It's a weird thing. I did this way back, I guess January, a couple years ago. I forget when at this point. These 2 years have blurred together. I did my video piece on the Pink Panther movies. And when I got to the Pink Panther sequels, there's that character that always butts heads with Clouseau, Inspector Dreyfus. And in the first Steve Martin Pink Panther, it was played by Kevin Kline. And in the second Pink Panther, that role was played by John Cleese. So there's weird... And then Steve Martin has a little nod in this. There's weird, like...
That's a little odd.
Yeah,
you're right.
That's... I guess when Kevin Kline turns you down, you then go to... Yeah.
Perhaps.
John Cleese.
Right, I'll take the bloody money.
Yeah, I love John Cleese because he's just open about that.
Still doing Australian. I got to switch back
to
the island.
You're thinking of Rod McKinney, so he's got that New Zealand... Yeah, so the funny sequence, and there's a couple too in that sequence, like in between Rod and Vince's reaction. There is some clever like trick photography.
I was always impressed. The two of them are on screen together a lot.
Yeah, but there's not like there's one shot in this hotel room where it pans.
Yeah,
and it, like I wish there was kind of more of that. I know it's hard to do.
Oh yeah,
there's a few like really good doubles involved, that type of thing. But I wish they would lend into it. They played into it a little bit more and like got creative with the angles and the cuts and that type of thing. Because it's like Kevin Kline, for being, the same person, he really is a chameleon in terms of like how he plays these two characters. And not only that, I think as an actor, it must be really tough to then have to play, you know what I mean? Like have one of your characters play the other character because you're not quite there, but you're like...
We'll get to that. That's what I found so brilliant.
Yeah. It's like that. I've heard Hank Azaria talk about it, where it's like when you do like a character impersonating one of your other characters, it's hard to...
I've heard that. I think I've heard Seth MacFarlane say that too. It's where you, like you said, you have a character that you're doing a voice, impersonating another voice, and then try throwing singing on top of that too. I've heard it's fucking near impossible.
Well, I could be wrong. I think it was Mel Blanc who would like have to do like Bugs Bunny imitating Daffy Duck. It was like that's just like
it's tough.
It's hard to think about. I do like how they get in, Vince and Rod get in an argument here.
You screwed up my whole childhood. How could I have? I wasn't even there.
And seeing Kevin Kline believably argue with another version of himself,
it's great.
It's got to be a particularly good actor to. I mean, I know doubles and there's stands and that type of thing, but like really getting emotional with this other character, like it's Kevin Kline, man. We're gonna keep singing his praises, but
dude, I love Kevin Kline, man.
Yeah.
I can't get enough Kevin Kline after these two.
But you haven't seen Dave.
I've seen Dave.
Oh, have you?
I love Dave.
Oh, Dave's great.
Dave's
one
awesome.
of my favorites.
Yeah, Dave's an excellent film. It's funny, though, because, I jump back to that silent movie just shitting all over Mel Brooks.
Oh, no.
Mel Brooks probably likes that movie, the fucking idiot that he is. But here's John Cleese's words, so don't get mad at me. Someone asked him, like, what would you not do again in life? And he goes, I wouldn't have married... I can't...
This is actually taken because I have his autobiography, and I looked and I was like, let me look in the the back page where they list everything. Let me see when he talks about Fierce Creatures. It's got one mention, and it is
I wouldn't have married Alice Faye Eichelberger, and I wouldn't have made Fierce Creatures.
Like that's it. That's all he had to say about
and
it.
I don't even think he doesn't have that much to be ashamed by. The movie has, I'm telling you, at least 3 times I audibly laughed.
Oh yeah, no,
a noise came out of me.
It's again, you have to talk about it in context of A Fish Called Wanda.
I thought it was going to be worse, quite frankly. But I think it's like right where we are now. It's like almost... This is where it's like you're like, what's going on in the movie?
Yeah.
I can't even remember. I watched it, I think, yesterday.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, they must have had a structure that was built up to this reshot ending. And that's why when the new ending kicks in, it's like, oh, this is fun. This is, like, really clever. And everyone has something to do. And it's...
Because after the hotel sequence, you're kind of getting into the end of the movie, right?
Exactly,
Does anything else happen in there?
No, because, that's what I mean. He gets into it with his father. His father doesn't want to leave him the money.
I think Willows... Oh, there's also
he wants to be cryogenically frozen.
Right. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because that comes up later again. But I forgot, you do have that idiotic sequence where Jamie Lee Curtis has her moment. They call it contact or something with the gorilla.
I wrote this down too. I must have skimmed by it. What?
That was awful.
What is the point of that? Is it supposed to humanize her character?
No, because remember her father took her to see the gorilla.
I know, but it's
so then the gorilla likes her. So now she likes the zoo. It's dog shit.
Like you're saying, why there were so many movies in the '90s that were trying to like gorillas are beautiful creatures and like we love the gorillas.
It must have been Coco. I don't fucking know.
What is that one where it's like I always used to see the trailer. It was like a sophisticated British woman and there's all these monkeys in a mansion. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, it's not Gorillas in the Mist.
No, definitely not.
It's not Congo.
It's not Mighty Joe Young.
It's not Mighty Joe Young.
But there were so many. Look how many monkey movies there were.
There's Monkey Trouble, Harvey Keitel. I think I had a Capuchin, which I hated that movie.
There's Dunstan Checks In.
Which I always wanted to make a horror sequel called Dunstan Checks Out. And it's just him murdering everyone in the hotel.
A rare Paul Rubens non-Pee Wee Herman performance as like the zoo hunter. Was he like a hunter
in the mansion with the gorillas? What the fuck?
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I feel like I
could see it in Blockbuster. I could again, all of our listeners are shouting right now. Yeah, it's like what do they say? Make contact. She made contact.
So lame.
Like, yeah.
Oh, we call that making. Oh, like they're all like knowingly like, oh, you had your contact.
I wonder if they're up. You know what's weird? Like in the early, like I guess I shouldn't say early, but like in the 30s, whenever like there was a guy needed to do like fake movie gorilla, there was one guy that did it. And like in Little Rascals, Laurel and Hardy, Three Stooges, it was always the same guy that played a gorilla. That was his thing. I wonder if there's like like, I guess, like, I know Stan Winston was really good at building, like, that type of practical effects, but, like, who was in charge of doing monkeys for me? Because it doesn't look awful. Like, it does look...
They were pretty good.
In this day, it would be CGI, which is, like... I was talking to Ryan off mic. I saw Jordan Peele's Nope, and there's a chimpanzee character that's completely CGI. I guess that we're starting, like...
Oh, they didn't... I didn't see the movie. I've ruined... I'm a big... I'll just read spoilers. I think you guys probably know that by now. It's the journey, not the destination. However, they didn't do any real shots of a real chimp.
I don't believe so. And what's that?
Lazy filmmaking, man.
I don't
lazy
think
filmmaking.
I don't think it's lazy filmmaking. I think there's starting to be so many hurdles about getting approval to use animals on film.
You're probably right.
Because what's that? It's the Call of the Wild with the Harrison Ford movie with the CGI dog.
The whole
time, yeah. Hey, look, I get it, because as we're recording this, my dog is next to me chomping on the bone, so you'll probably hear that audio.
Well,
but
was it a W.C. Fields line? Don't ever work with children or animals?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, he's right, yeah.
Did he say women, too? I can't remember.
No, I think it was just children or animals.
Okay.
But he would have said, I don't include women in that.
They don't even rate.
Yeah. So, at this point in the movie, speaking of animatronics, Vince has an animatronic panda that he's faking is a real panda, which is, again, kind of funny because he's riding it. But here's why it doesn't work, is because it almost looks better than the supposed real gorillas in this movie.
I thought it was real at first.
Yeah.
I didn't. Not only that, I didn't realize what the hell was going on in the scene.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden he's just like, "Hey, I'm in the cage," and all the dumb zookeepers are like, "No,
Yeah,
bloody,
I thought he was going to get attacked or something.
I didn't get what was happening.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like this movie already had animatronic animals, and the panda is on par with them. So, like, they should have made it look a little bit, worse for wear, not as quite as, because for 90s animatronics, it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
It does break down the rest of the movie. It has an out of order sign on it, and it's in the background, which is kind of funny.
There's a lot left on the table with this movie, I feel like.
Well, so this must be where the reshoots kick in, because
I read 5 weeks, and it cost $7 million
to reshoot.
What the fuck were they doing?
Well, no, I heard that. You're saying 5 weeks to reshoot.
Yes.
They had to wait 8 months because Michael Palin was off doing his travel program.
Right.
And John Cleese, I heard when I saw him live, told a really funny story. He said, I called up Mrs. Palin and I said, is her husband home? And she went, no, he's off filming one of those awful travel programs. And John Cleese himself referred to them as ball-achingly dull.
They probably, I remember being a kid and it was like, oh, Michael Palin at the pyramids. And I'm like, okay.
It was just kind of his bread and butter for a long time. Like, he's, what is he in? There's a movie that, The Death of Stalin.
That was fucking good.
Did you say it? I haven't seen it yet. You like that guy, right?
Iannucci?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't, Veep was okay. The Thick of It is phenomenal.
I Thick of It's good. I've seen The Thick of It.
In The Loop, I made a little comment on Twitter and it got a ton of action. I think it got 1 like. I get no action on Twitter from you people. I try to be provocative, and I just get bored. I'm like, fuck this. But I don't think In the Loop was the closest I've seen that I can think of as an anti-war movie.
Interesting.
Something to chew on, listeners.
Yeah, well, not in like your typical anti-war movie. Like it's more like Dr. Strangelove, but not quite like that.
It's just
more about the dumb like.
Not only the arbitrary nature of our conflicts. I thought it did it perfecally in that respect. It's a good movie.
I
So
just
it's very
that part
funny.
where Gandolfini's like the general, and he's doing the calculator on like the child's calculator to like.
We got you got 10,000.
Yeah.
It's very funny. And the thing's making the little kid noises.
Oh, it's great. So at this point in the movie, like now all the zookeepers are dressed up like animals, like they're in full like Disney World type animal costumes.
Why?
Not explained. They're again reshoots. Who knows? Because you had to wait 8 monts. And in that time, your director is busy. Like, so many people are busy, so that's why you have to bring in all these new people.
That little guy grew a foot.
Ronnie Corbett is a foot taller.
Is he alive?
That's the same thing that happened with Anthony Michael Hall with the reshot Vacation ending. He hit puberty, and he grew up a foot. And for this one, yeah.
I love you, Dad.
Yeah.
Is Corbett still alive?
No, he died recently, actually. I think within the last couple of years. I wish I could say I knew more what he was from. I know our UK listeners know him. He's much more prevalent over there. I was telling Ryan, I think there's a show called The Two Ronnies. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But anyway, Rod shows up at the zoo because he's caught has evidence that Vince has been stealing.
Right.
So he's gone to the police. He's going to have him arrested and done with once and for all.
Great little side character. Doesn't get to do much, but Rod's little major domo, Neville, played by Billy Brown.
Yeah, he needs that kiss-ass, like,
but
blind supporting.
I liked him.
I did too. Because it's like he finally has something to do in this scene where
Rod sends him off. He's like, all right, it's police. I'll confront my bloody son.
You're Bob Hoskins now. So he's going to confront his son. He goes to get the police, and Vince has a gun, and he's going to kill himself.
No. They're all having this argument about the money and blah, 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 and Michael Palin's character won't shut up.
Right.
So Vince runs away to get a gun. Then he comes back, and he's like, I'm going to shoot you if you don't shut up. Am I right, or am I forgetting something?
He puts it to his head at one point. He's not to Bugsy's head. Vince puts it to his own head, because he's talking about his father and how could you betray me, how could you do this, and I think he's about to shoot himself.
Go on, you spineless twat! See? You're no son of mine. Oh, you good idea. Give us all a good laugh. You wuss! I am not a wuss! Wuss. Oh, God, I hate you! I hate you! Give me that gun.
It's all right, Mr. McCain. It's a Beretta Model 34.
It goes right between his eyes.
And he still gets a line in.
What was it?
I think it's like...
You're fired.
But it's great. There's a whole...
It's just like he gets instantly shot in the middle of the forehead, has time for one line, and then falls over dead.
I mean, it's you're like, this shit should have been in the movie the whole time. These really, like, heavy... He's dead.
Well, this should have happened, like, in the beginning, and the movie should have been more about him pretending to be his father and some stuff there.
That
like,
wouldn't have been bad.
It's the best... It's the best element of the movie.
It catches you off guard.
Yeah, when he gets shot right then there, it's like, oh.
And maybe to what you're saying, maybe it is good that it happens later, because the movie is so light up until this point. There's no stakes beyond, I hope I don't get caught with doing nothing, or I hope we don't lose the
Whereas
zoo.
A Fish Called Wanda, there's stakes the whole movie. And like
whole movie.
There's dogs getting run over, and it's great.
We haven't really commented on that. The whole thing... So the George character in Fish Called Wanda obviously gets arrested, and there's one woman that recognizes them from the heist.
Yeah.
Old woman. Very old woman.
What, 3 Yorkies does she have?
She's got 3 little doggies. And so George goes, he's like, take care of her. Kill her. So Michael Palin's character, Ken, the whole movie, is trying to kill this woman, and he only succeeds in killing the dogs each time.
Funny.
It's fucking hilarious.
The like really convoluted ways that the dogs keep dying. Like one is giant fucking, what is it, a Rottweiler that like
that's so fun.
Just grabs the dog and runs away with it.
Not only that, when he's in the back of the truck with the dog's muzzled, it's going ballistic. Yeah. That's not CGI.
Oh, no.
That dog is going crazy. And it's funny too, when he lets the dog out, you can see he's got scratches and shit all over his face.
He keeps getting like progressively worse for wear, like sling and an eye patch.
That's another thing I want to comment on. One is that Ken is a big animal lover. Mm-hmm. With the fish, and he's just not happy about killing these dogs. It's really taking his toll on him. But there's something
keeps showing up at their funerals.
So funny about a character getting more fucked up.
Oh yeah,
and they stay fucked up.
Yeah,
it's so comical.
It's kind of a trope, but it's one that I love because it's at least there's like a chance for the actor to interpret it differently and different physical gags and stuff like that. And him, the eye patch, he's got the sling on, like scratches on his face.
But it's great. It's building.
Yeah,
it doesn't go back; it only goes forward. And there's just I don't think he's wearing one in this, but it made me think how inherently funny a neck brace is. It's the funniest thing. Just putting a neck brace on makes me laugh.
It was like when Jim Varney used to do that anti-character.
She always had one.
And it would transform his face. So it would like, push up the neck and it was great. So yeah, the simple like stuff that you could get like at like a first aid shop in a CVS, like it's
you don't have to go crazy.
It's really funny.
About a neck brace when they can't turn their head.
Yeah.
It's so fucking funny.
Oh, you know what else happens? I don't know if you've seen Splash, but Eugene Levy's character, he keeps trying to like photograph the mermaid, but he like ends up always like photographing the wrong people or like interfering with the wrong people. So he just like has. I love the broken collarbone cast, the extended. It's like your arms out in the right angle, like stuff like that, and great stuff like that. But yeah, he's really in A Fish Called Wanda really has a lot to do, Michael Palin, and So when all this shit at the end starts to happen, it's like kind of a breath of fresh air. You're like, this is because not only do they have to then disguise Vince as Rod, but like they have to use. I love how they use like the animal costumes to cut the mustache. Like it's clever. It's kind of fun and like.
It's just a shame because there's now 18 minutes left in the movie, not counting credits.
But they do a lot of fun stuff where like they stuff him because Rod's a little bit overweight, so they stuff him up with like padded tissues and like. What's his buddy's name?
Neville.
Neville's like, what is that? He's like, oh, tissues. I'm gonna be crying. Like, it's how I keep my tissues here in my shirt. Like, it's funny. Like,
the brilliant thing though is that Kevin Kline as the Vince character doesn't do Rod perfectly. The accent's a little off.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's like as an actor, that has to be so challenging.
I was like that.
He slips out of it a couple times.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But even when he's doing it, it's not quite right. And I'm like, man, that's a fucking to make that distinction in your head. Be like, oh, let me pull off on that syllable a little bit.
Yeah.
Let me not do that.
But I will say, it's also like talk about like this movie does set things up pretty good because they redo his will. They redo Rod's will in that all the zookeepers get equal share of the zoo, and what is it, 7 billion or 7 million? Is it billion? I think it is billion. Vince is going to get all of that. And he just has to sign the will and they witness it. And it was set up earlier that he's good at forging his father's signature. Like, I like when little shit like that is, you're kind of hinted at earlier in the movie. You plant the seed earlier in the movie.
The problem was we didn't see them planting the seeds a lot of times. Like, you had to catch them.
Yeah.
And it's like, you got to be a little clear with that. Because, your average person is
saying.
Pretty dull with it. They don't follow movies too closely.
A Fish Called Wanda is much better at it.
Oh, yeah.
The whole necklace with the key in it, and then the wife finds it. She's in this, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that.
She's the wife from...
Aitken, I think her name. Maria Aitken, yeah. Yep. She's the... what's his name? Archie Leach's wife in A Fish Called Wanda, and she's the... nameless zookeeper, I guess, here.
Yeah, she doesn't have almost nothing to do. But I did notice her right away. I'm like, oh, that's the wife.
Yeah.
Because she's good in Fish Called Wanda.
I was going to say, she plays like the annoyed, like, just like, I don't want to say like sniveling. She's not like that, but just like the stuck up, like, she's got that face of like arrogance and like, oh, gee, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, that scene when he comes in champagne and his wife turns around...
Dude, I was in tears. Like, his reactions, and it's staged so beautifully. It's just like the hotel scene in Fierce Creatures, because Jamie Lee
Curtis... People
Curtis...
coming in and out.
But she's hiding. And so he thinks she's behind this door.
Yeah.
Oh, they're opening the door, and he's like,
yeah,
she's not there.
Yeah.
And then it's just great.
Otto just walks in and is like, I'm with the CIA. I'm canvassing the neighborhood. Like,
and then, of course, she's like, my father worked in the Secret Service for years. I don't think this is what you would do to debrief a KGB agent. He's like, well, lady, it's so fucking funny.
Again, it's that Fawlty Towers sense of everyone's like in and out, near misses, like almost like a stage play in terms of like how it's staged and set. Like, it's great.
But that's the beauty of film, is that you show what you want to show. So like when you show her hiding behind a door, we know it.
Right.
Archie knows it. You know what I mean? Like it's, whereas in Fierce Creatures, like you were saying, it's like they kind of gloss over the fact that, like, they even say it at one point. They're like, "Oh, he won't be doing that again." Like the Vince character, like, did he embezzled something? Huh? Like, they don't, and it's gone till the end.
Yeah, I almost like, because we talk about this a lot with reshoots. A lot of movies we've talked about had bad test screenings, reshoots, things cut, stuff like that. You almost wonder, like, what was so bad? Like, I wish they preserved some of this stuff so you could compare it, because so much of this stuff they would cut it and that was it. You'd like maybe like work print footage survives, but you never get the so like you look, because like audiences change, like our taste change. So like you almost look at it. Would it have been more of a cult classic if that original ending was left in? Like who's to say?
I don't know.
I do like this ending. I don't know if the cut ending had anything to do with him taking his father's place.
How do you? I don't know. I just want to know what it was.
Well, because like this whole gimmick of him playing both characters has to have a payoff.
But that had to have been in the original ending.
I mean, I would hope. But you're like, that's the whole, like, unless Kevin Kline was like, I want to play two characters. Like, who knows? Like, because it seems like he's done it in 4 other movies.
I really don't know. It's bizarre. Let me ask you something. I know I can't think of one, but I know there's an instance where there was a test screening, the audience didn't like it, and it got recut, and it's a good movie. What is like the test screening shit? I can't believe they're even still. I assume they're still doing it.
They are.
It's so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
It's the dumbest thing to do.
Yeah. Well, there are certain. I think, especially if you're doing like a tentpole movie, like there's certain advantages from a marketing perspective. But in terms of like independent cinema and like these streaming movies, like the average moviegoer is a fucking moron.
Yeah.
Like they should not.
You're not bringing in film scholars off the street. It's people in the mall, and it's like, there's a long line at Cinnabon. Let me go see this test piece of shit.
I don't know if it was. I think it was for like a pilot of a TV show. I did it once outside of a fucking Suncoast in the mall, in the Granite Run Mall. Rest in peace. They had like a woman there with laptops out. I was like, "Hey, do you like movies?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she pulled me in for the most boring thing ever. Then she sat down and he was like, how would you describe you're likely to recommend this to a friend? Like really just like, it's not a good way to gauge that type of stuff. But yeah, apparently that's a good question. If anyone knows of a test screening that enhanced the movie, what are some?
Yeah.
Let us know.
I know I've read of accounts of that happening.
It might even been one we've talked about. But
I got pulled into we went to a skate park in Jersey, Moorestown? I don't know. It's kind of an a-mallish type thing. And we're walking out. It's like, hey, do you want to do a focus group for a movie? Same thing. I'm like, of course. And I'm a little pissant kid. I want to be so it was Clock Stoppers. Yeah, I think Jonathan Frakes directed that. But they show us a couple clips, and they're like, well, what do you...
Your boy French Stewart.
Yeah. So it's a whole nother story. But so they're like, what'd you think about the movie? And it's a movie where kids can stop time. Mm-hmm. And I just went off on this whole thing. It's a kid, trying to find his identity, and they're looking at me like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? Did you like the clock stopping?
Like, and by the way, Mel Brooks' a silent movie. Do you have a minute? You as a kid,
oh man,
your crayon notebook, you're like, I'm gonna...
Did I ever tell you, I think I've said this to you, because we were talking about Steve Martin, and it's like, I'd like to shit on Mel Brooks to his face. I have no problem with that, but I always wanted to like be in a restaurant and Steve Martin's like at another table, and I just wanted to start shit with him. Be like, hey, Steve, why don't you go get your banjo? Play us a little ditty. Like, just really get under his skin. I like Steve Martin. I don't know why. I'd love to belittle him in public, though.
You're an Opie and Anthony show listener from back in the day.
Oh, sure.
And there was that bit where Jim Norton went off on Steve Martin.
Because of the Pink Panther thing?
Yeah, and then he was doing like one of those remote bits at the red carpet. And Steve Martin was like, oh, you're the one that said nasty things about me. Like right to his face. And he was like, I kind of respect him for that.
Of course.
Going for it. But like not in a way where it's like, fuck you. Like, I'm going to be kind of smug and like, I know who you are. Like, yeah, you gotta give him credit for that.
You know what would be awesome too? I would hope Steve Martin would be like, okay, he gets his banjo and wraps it around my head. You know what I mean? It's whatever.
You have weird fantasies.
I sure do.
I don't know what live in your head.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, back to Fierce Creatures. So he's Rod is dead, and they have to disguise Vince as him to completely seal the deal that they have the zoo. Vince gets the money. The only one that's in disbelief is his partner, Neville. And he's going to make it look like he kills himself so that everything works out. Again, it's very clever, near misses, where he has to get in this shed where they make it happen. They clean up Vince, they make him not look like his father, get the body back in the suit, and he gets out and runs in just in time.
Like how he was trying to freeze him at first, too.
Yeah, he's trying to put him in the freezer because that's what his father wanted. They're like... He was shot in the head.
Yeah. There's no cure.
There's no cure for that. That's a funny angle, though, too. The wealthy businessman doesn't want to leave him any money because it's going to cost a lot to get him cryogenically frozen. And, I'm going to come back. Did you catch... so at the very end, obviously, they are able to forge the will. They think that Rod killed himself in terms of being so horrible to his son, Vince, and finally coming to grips with that. He kills himself, and they all get the zoo. And I love there's a moment where Rollo's like to Vince, like, all right, I fixed it so we get the zoo and you get the $7 billion. He's like, well, that's not fair. You get to live in the zoo with Willa. And he's like, yes, but you get $7 billion. He's like, oh, right.
Yeah.
Instantly forgets his character motivation for getting at Willa. He's got $7 billion.
So that's what annoyed me about this character. Like, he wasn't consistent in his... venality.
Exactly. They just wanted a way to get him involved in the zoo and get him mixed up in that, but it was just not thought out very well. It was just like, it was not like there was motivation where like they wanted to get rid of him. They didn't want him hanging around the company because they knew he was a thief. Like I almost wish they'd be like, we're going to send him to the zoo. It's impossible for him not to steal here. We'll catch him. You'll be able to put him away. Just some like more thought put into like how to what Rod's motivation was for betraying him.
I feel like it was enough for Kevin Kline to just act weird, and they were like, "Oh, that's good enough."
Yeah. Well,
there was a lot of that's good enough in this movie. Whereas Fish Called Wanda, like I said, it's so tight.
Yeah.
It's almost nothing wasted in that. There's a lot of waste in this movie.
Yeah, and Fish Called Wanda is almost, I think it's like an hour and 40. This is shorter, and it feels way longer. You know, there's so much dead air. But did you catch at the very end when they embrace Rollo and Willa? He calls her Wanda.
Oh, yeah, he does, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's your little wink. No, did you call me Wanda? You know, that's kind of funny.
There were little Python-esque things here and there.
Yeah.
Like the stupid zookeeper's just like, oh, it's just a flesh wound.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, there's other little lines, too. Like when the woman's swimming with the sea lions, are like, oh, beautiful plumage. It's like, from the Dead Parrot sketch.
Yeah, we talked about in our A Million Ways episode how, I'm a sap for cameos and that type of thing, even if they're completely pointless. And, there's a few of those in Maverick, the Danny Glover cameo, stuff like that, where it's like it stops the movie for a minute.
Oh, yeah.
But it's still kind of fun. Like
it's worth it. Why
not? What is that? I think it's called Cuban Fury. There's a Nick Frost movie where at one point he's just in a parking garage and Simon Pegg drives by. They just look at each other. There's no dialogue. I like when it's that simple, that quick. And so I'm surprised there wasn't like your occasional like Eric Idle or they really commit that it's just us four. We're going to sell this movie, and there needs to be a trilogy. I wish they would try to do a third.
I highly doubt that's going to happen.
Yeah, no, because this movie opens at number 8.
It would be funny, though, because they're all older. You could do something there.
Nursing home. I don't know.
Yeah, like some kind of scheme.
A nursing home caper.
Hey, what is this Ian Johnston or Johnstone? Did he do anything? He wrote this with him.
He was like, I think, an agent originally, or he was like a TV presenter, and then he became a writer. But yeah, he hasn't done much else. He's written some books I read, but...
Because that was the other thing. I mean, with Fish Called Wanda, it's Charles Crichton and John Cleese. Mm-hmm. Like, they did the story together. Yeah. They directed it together. Cleese says he's like, I was just there for insurance, because Crichton was kind of old, and he was going to come back and do Fierce Creatures. Yeah. And Cleese was like, you're too old. And he says...
Well, I heard he had some problems, like... Because, like, Cleese is uncredited director of A Fish Called Wanda, which I guess there were some...
No, it's because he was... They thought Crichton was too old at the time.
Oh, I thought you were saying for... Fierce Creatures.
No, no. Cleese was just straight up like, nah, you're too old. And he's like, fuck, I shouldn't have done that.
Oh, you're saying Cleese regrets shutting him out. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But
no, Cleese says on Wanda, he's like, I didn't direct the thing there. He's like, I was just there in case the guy died. It was an insurance thing.
Yeah, because he hadn't really directed a movie in like 30 years. Mm-hmm. So it was, I guess, a huge risk for them to take a gamble on hiring this guy. But
it's a great looking movie too, man.
I think a lot of people like take for granted what like just an excellent writer Cleese is. I mean, not take aside Fawlty Towers, all the Python movies. I mean, he's such a fun writer. I think he's even doing that movie The Croods?
Yeah.
He wrote the story for The Croods. So
really?
Yeah.
Have you seen any of those movies? I think there was one before. It's called Clockwise that he's really proud of.
I bring that up. Yeah, it's really fun.
You've seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that same type of like quick. Like, it's about this guy who's really anal about time, and then just by one little mistake, by missing something by 1 minute, his entire life falls apart.
That sounds great.
Yeah, and he's perfect at playing that. But yeah, would you recommend Fierce Creatures? Would you suggest a double feature? What do you think is the way to go with it?
If you're just looking for a couple, easy laughs, some actors who are fairly game, they're fun to watch. With the exception of Michael Palin, he's dreadful in this, like unwatchable. It's really bad.
It's just nothing to do.
He does stuff. It's not funny. It's fucking annoying. And the only saving grace is every other character thinks he's fucking annoying.
Again, but I think that was just a bad call of them being like, oh, we'll make it so he's annoying. Like, that'll be, like, let's give him... He talks a lot. He didn't talk enough in the last one. It'll be a fun reversal. Yeah, I know.
The reverse, yes, I get it.
Yeah.
But, like, he's really annoying. It's not funny at all. He never gets a laugh out of me in this until he shoots someone in the face.
Yeah, it's very out of left field.
It's very funny.
I would recommend it maybe if you haven't seen either this or A Fish Called Wanda, watch this one first.
If you haven't seen Wanda, watch this one first.
Yeah, and that way you'll it won't be that jarring when you realize how it's not as good as Wanda, and then you'll watch Wanda and be like, "This is amazing."
Wanda's like a 4-star movie, dude.
It's great.
Real. I was stunned. I was like, "Oh my god, this is way better than I remember it."
Yeah, I just remember always like seeing it in the DVD store of like that minimalist, re-release poster of just the fish, and I'd be like, "What's that movie about?" I don't know. It's about a fish.
It always struck me. I've brought this up before. How you'd see certain movies, and you're like, "That's a movie for adults." Like not a porno or anything, but just like adults like this and find it funny.
Yeah.
And it's true. And goddamn, I wish there were some adult movies for adults to watch
today.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah, and that's. I
But
will
hey,
say
that's the Rod McKay mentality. Global up everything.
But that's. I don't know if there's a rating difference. They both might be PG-13.
No, I think Wanda's R.
I don't know what this is. PG-13.
There's a fuck that snuck in there.
Oh yeah, you're right. There's like some almost nudity, and I think that they were like almost like that might be your Universal now involved. They might be like, let's make it cute animals and it, like family friendly. So there's that element. It doesn't work. These characters are so much better, or these actors when the material lets them just be more not limiting.
Wanda's a mean, nasty movie, and this just isn't. No. And it should have been. It
close-up shot of lemur looking.
Yeah, like oh,
yeah.
Like I hate that when animals are reacting to shit humans are doing. Like, oh, what did he say?
It's the worst, yeah.
Oh, it's the worst.
It's funny, too. When I pulled up the Wikipedia page for this movie, it's like, not to be confused with the Zooboomafu episode. So, like, that should tell you. Remember that show? It was literally about, like, these zookeepers with, like, a lemur that would jump around. But then, like, the lemur was like a puppet.
Yeah, vaguely.
Yeah.
I think I was kind of...
You were probably...
I was a little older.
Yeah, I was still watching my Saturday morning, Zooboomafu. You were watching, Jackie Chan Adventures.
I was watching the McLaughlin Group on PBS.
Right. You're watching your Bob Hoskins gritty crime films.
If anyone gets that reference, I just made,
I didn't get it.
I'll buy you a fucking T-shirt.
Here you guys go. You can.
You know where to find me,
even without the promo code
on my viral Twitter account.
Yeah. So, not the worst movie, not the best. I wish that these guys had just. I mean, it took them almost a decade to get it made, but I wish they had just waited for a more. I don't know, a greater story idea than this one that just kind of pits them. I think the story was secondary, and that their whole goal was let's just get the four of us together again, and the story suffers because of it. But
I think you're onto something too with the time gap. I think the tastes in 1997, where it was like, hey, cute animals, which honestly,
different time, yeah,
it became distracting because I'm like, there was that one scene in the bedroom. Where I'm like, oh, that little ostrich is cute. I wanted to see more of it.
I mean, the lemur makes the poster here.
Yeah, and lemurs, I like lemurs, but they're kind of fucking annoying. That face.
Oh well, they became like very marketing. Like zoos were using them to market it. Like even said Zooboomafu, that show. So I agree. I think it's the animal angle is not the best, but hey, whatever.
They're like annoying on the cover too. I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't want to see this movie.
Yeah,
I don't want to.
Yeah,
it looks it's a smug cover.
It doesn't sell the movie at all.
Not even remotely.
Yeah. So
you know what you do? You have these four smaller. You have a zoo behind them, covered in advertisements.
Oh, there you go.
How many fucking times can I do this?
Folks, hire Ryan for all your studio marketing needs.
Believe it or not, I'm a pretty good graphic designer.
I'm sure you are.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll design some shirts for us.
Yeah. I got to get Photoshop or something. I have no money. But
hey, if you buy some more T-shirts. So you have decided our next episode.
We're going to do one of my... this is good, so at least I like the movie. I won't be too negative.
I can't wait to be...
It's Bill Paxton. I don't think it's his only movie he directed. I think he directed another one, but it's Frailty.
Frailty.
It's got him, Matthew McConaughey, Powers Booth. Spoiler, I fucking love this movie.
I've never seen it.
Great.
And as you always say, Paxton over Pullman.
Yeah, and I love Pullman, but Paxton over Pullman for sure for me. And then on Patreon, we'll do The Dark Backward, which I feel like is a movie I know you haven't seen. It's got him and Judd Nelson. I think you're going to hate this movie. I've never seen it, but I know it's one that I think people might like.
Are there brown intertitles in either of these movies?
There's a lot of grossness.
My metaphorical brown.
Yeah. I think this movie, it's not going to be your sensibility, so that's good. But we'll do that one on Patreon, The Dark Backward.
There's your little tease for that.
It's my tease.
Yeah, that'll be fun. And then, like I said, 25 is going to be stay tuned. So we got some content coming. Sorry, it's been a little gap between episodes.
I had to get a job. I had a straight job now. It ate up my time.
Look at Ryan. He's grown up. But if you buy some T-shirts, that could be...
maybe I'll quit.
Yeah, maybe you can quit. But this was fun. I'm glad we got to talk about Fierce Creatures. It's been suggested, but it was more one where you're like, this whole like spiritual successor. I think that's a fun idea, and this is one that's commonly called that, and it was a good chance to look at what works and what doesn't work about these type of movies. But yeah, I'm like I said, there are things that we liked about it, things that just by nature of the fact it being like A Fish Called Wanda, that it, or compared to A Fish Called Wanda, that really are to its detriment.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna keep the mics rolling and chat on Patreon a little bit about some other Python movies, some John Cleese stuff. You checked out all of Fawlty Towers, right?
Watch the whole thing.
And yeah, some more stuff that relates to Fierce Creatures. So for those of you that support us on Patreon for $5 a month, we will see you over there. And for those of you that don't, maybe you'll consider supporting us for next time. But either way, we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks for listening.